Good, happy Sunday afternoon, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this week's edition of Politics with Riley King. Let's begin. First up, Washington Governor Jay Inslee joins Democratic presidential field. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
So I am announcing today that I'm a candidate to become the next president of the United States.
Governor Jay Inslee wants to make the move from Washington State to the White House in Washington, D.C. In his official campaign launch Friday, he said priority number one is doing something about climate change.
We have one chance to defeat climate change, and it is right now.
In New Hampshire, the Sierra Club is excited to see Inslee and so many other candidates prioritizing climate, a global issue with local impacts.
From sea level rise to wildlife like moose population impacts, maple syrup.
On the first in the nation front, Inslee was chair of the Democratic Governors Association in 2018. He took some fire from key players in the New Hampshire Democratic Party after he did not invest in Molly Kelly's challenge to Governor Chris Sununu.
That's what happened in the past. We realized what the situation was, we addressed it, and now we're going to move forward and making sure that we have a Democratic governor come 2020.
State Party Chairman Ray Buckley welcomes Inslee and says it comes as no surprise to see so many Democrats getting into the race.
There are just so many Americans that are outraged over the corruption of the Trump administration that folks are wanting to do something about it. And part of that is run for president.
The already long list of candidates will keep getting longer. A source confirmed for News 9 today that former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper will officially declare his candidacy next week. Adam Sexton, WMUR, News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. 21-year-old pleads guilty to voting in Massachusetts and New Hampshire in 2016 election. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Jennifer Vaughn.
Spencer McKinnon pleaded guilty this week to a misdemeanor charge of providing a false statement on a voter registration form here in New Hampshire. It is the state's first conviction through that interstate database program that identifies voters who may have registered or voted in more than one state. The Attorney General's office says McKinnon mailed an absentee ballot in October of 2016 in Dracut, Massachusetts, stating it was his hometown, but 2 days later, he signed a voter registration form in Durham. As part of his 6-month suspended sentence, McKinnon has lost his right to vote in New Hampshire. He must also complete 200 hours of community service. Live in the newsroom tonight, Jennifer Vaughn, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Weld fires back at RNC chair for inviting potential Trump challenger to jump in and lose. Former Massachusetts governor responds to McDaniel comments at CPAC. William Weld is firing back at the Republican National Committee chair for secretly inviting potential challengers to President Donald Trump for the GOP presidential nomination to have at it and go ahead and lose. The former Massachusetts governor called Trump a corporate nastric guy in response to RNC chair Romney McDaniel comments at the CPAC, the Conventional Political Action Conference in suburban Washington, D.C. on Thursday morning. Conversation with the candidate with Andrew Yang. Let's watch this video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Right after college, I started having what I believed were panic attacks. I haven't had a seizure since the surgery. I'm so grateful for my life now.
Good evening and welcome to our Conversation with the Candidate series. I'm Adam Sexton. Our guest this evening is entrepreneur Andrew Yang, and tonight we'll be getting to know Mr. Yang and where he stands on key issues. At the start of our show, I'll be asking the candidate some questions, and then after a break, we'll have our studio audience ask their questions in a town hall format. But before we begin, let's take a quick look at the candidate's biography. Andrew Yang was born in upstate New York and graduated from Phillips Exeter Academy here in New Hampshire in 1992. He studied economics and political science at Brown and went to law school at Columbia. Yang worked for a healthcare startup and ran a national education company. He then founded Venture for America, an organization helping entrepreneurs create jobs in cities like Baltimore, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. President Obama named him a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship in 2015. Yang believes that new technologies, including software, robots, and artificial intelligence, are eliminating jobs, and that the U.S. must act now to deal with the reality that Americans are at risk of permanent unemployment. One of his solutions? Implementing a universal basic income that would go to every American over the age of 18. Yang is married and has 2 children. Andrew Yang, thanks for joining us.
Okay, and there you go on that video. If you want to watch the whole video and the full series, we will share the links with you on the Riley King Network Facebook page. O'Rourke moves closer to run for White House. Take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
A headline-grabbing visit for Beto O'Rourke during his January road trip. But his attempts to find himself as a potential presidential candidate appear to be behind him. A decision on the 2020 race from the Texas political phenom is expected soon. But if he's running, he'll be playing catch-up here in New Hampshire.
Beto, right?
Heard about this guy out of Texas?
Nah, maybe he should come here then so I can talk to him.
If he came close to winning over Texas, he could definitely come close to winning over a country.
I haven't heard a whole lot about him. I've certainly heard that he has quite a following.
In a growing field of candidates with no shortage of choices, O'Rourke is the only big name with his own independent and active draft movement in New Hampshire. House parties have been held, and Concord attorney Jay Sertikowski recently made a road trip of his own, going to Texas to size up Beto himself.
And he is very engaging. He's the way that I remembered when I met Obama, the same kind of humanity, really interested in you.
While O'Rourke has proven he can generate excitement, ABC News political director Rick Klein says the clock is ticking.
A lot of Democrats are out there competing against each other, traveling to New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina right now. And the feeling of, well, if you want this thing, go do it.
Klein says if O'Rourke throws his hat in the ring, he would immediately be competing head-to-head for votes with the candidate many consider the frontrunner, Bernie Sanders. Live in the studio, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Over 60 Trump-related documents to be requested from White House Judiciary Chair. Rep. Gerald Nadler, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, said that his committee will be issuing document requests on Monday to a dozen of individuals. And if you want to watch that video and read more about this, we will have a link for you on the Riley King Network Facebook page. And also, before we end this edition of Politics with Riley King, I want to share this video with you. About my trip to the WMUR studio and being part of the Conversation with the Candidate series of Andrew Yang. Take a look at this video of my trip. I hope you all enjoy.
Congress.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this news report right here on the Riley King Network. Today, I went to WMUR News 9 and got to participate in Conversation with the Candidate and saw Mr. Yang, the candidate. About my trip today. I was part of a studio audience. I got picked. I signed up to be part of the studio audience, and I got picked to be part of the studio audience for today's event, and they pre-recorded it, and it will be airing this coming Thursday evening, and I had a fun time at Channel 9, and here's a photo that I took, as you can see. And here's what the set looks like, and in the photo you can see Adam Sexton. He did a wonderful job hosting the program. And then at the end of the event, another photo. And here is Mr. Yang. And it was just a fun time being part of this event, and I enjoyed it. With more on the event and how it went, take a look at this video from WMUR News 9 Political Director Adam Sexton.
He's a candidate with big ideas, taking questions from first-in-the-nation voters in WMUR's Conversation with the Candidate series. Democrat Andrew Yang laid out the central theme of his campaign, that all Americans should get a universal basic income, $1,000 a month he calls a freedom dividend that would replace some of the welfare state.
But if you opt in, then you're foregoing benefits from some of these other programs. Now, many people would prefer $1,000 unconditional cash with no monitoring and no paperwork and all that stuff to their current program. So we're going to lighten the bureaucracy in those 126 programs, but we're not going to take anything away from someone if they think that their current benefits are superior to $1,000 cash.
Yang is confident he would be able to get his ambitious agenda through Congress, and also plans to relinquish some executive power if elected.
One thing I've already said I'd do is I would push the authorization for military action back to Congress where it belongs in the Constitution.
He backs the Green New Deal to tackle climate change and also wants to take dramatic action to cut opioid overdoses by 20% over the next 4 years.
So the first thing I would do is I would go to Purdue Pharma and I'd say, hey, you made $15 billion on the backs of the American people. It's blood money. We're going to get that money back and we're going to fund treatment.
While Yang started from the ranks of the unknowns in this contest, voters left this conversation wanting to learn more.
I
looked at his book and did a little research on him, but there's nothing like the real thing, and that's what this provides. But I was kind of impressed. I felt like he, had a response for every question.
I learned a lot today, a whole lot, and I just loved his ideas. They're so different. I want to see him many more times.
Adam Saxton, WMUR, News 9.
All right, thanks, Adam. These conversations are so important to get to.
Okay, and there you go on that video. And that's it for this Sunday edition of Politics with Riley King. I hope you all enjoyed this Sunday edition of Politics with Riley King. I'll see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics with Riley King. Have a great week, everyone, and have a great rest of your Sunday. Goodbye.